This meeting. So welcome everyone to the Clear Admit webinar series about deferred enrollment MBA programs. I'm Graham Richmond. I'm going to moderate today's session. That's probably all you really need to know about me. What I'm really excited to do is introduce our guests and welcome them to the show here. I think first up, we've got Gina Cicchetti. And Gina is the Associate Director of Master's Admissions over at Carnegie Mellon University's Tepper School of Business. Welcome, Gina.
Thank you. Welcome, everyone.
Yeah, it's great to see you again. Next up, we've got Savannah Richardson, who is an Assistant Director of Admissions over at Columbia Business School in New York City. Hey, Savannah.
Hi, everyone. Nice to see you today.
Great to have you. We also are going to hear from Gretchen Brown, who's a manager of college outreach and in the MBA admissions office at Harvard Business School. Welcome, Gretchen.
Thanks, Graham. Hi, everyone. Great to be here today.
Yeah, it's great to have you back. And then we've also got Catherine Alford, who's the Director of Admissions for the Future Year Scholars Program at University of Virginia's Darden School of Business. Hey, Catherine.
Hey, Graham. I just celebrated my 15th anniversary last week at Darden. So
wow. Okay.
Giving myself a shout out.
Yeah, there you go. Wow, I didn't know that. That's awesome. And then last but not least, we're going to go back to the top here. We've got Meg Roundy, who's joining us she's an associate director for full-time MBA admissions at Berkeley's Haas School of Business. Hey, Meg.
Hi, how are you?
I'm well. I'm glad you made it. We're all set here and ready to roll. So what we're going to do first is we have this kind of general I want to just give like a quick spiel. I'll try to be very brief on like what is a deferred enrollment MBA, because I know that, for college students, you all know what an MBA is, but this idea of deferred enrollment is a bit different in the sense that, for most people, getting an MBA means graduating from college, going off and working for a while, and then applying to business school at some point and joining. And deferred MBA, which is kind of a newer concept. I mean, some schools have been offering it for longer than others, but let's say when I applied to business school, it didn't exist. Deferred enrollment MBAs allow you to apply while you're a senior in college, or in many cases, if you're finishing a master's degree that you started right after college. And you can apply to business school and basically lock in a seat that allows you to go off and work for a couple of years. Most schools require you to work for anywhere from 2 to 4, or in some cases 5 years, or allow you to work for that long before you then come into the MBA program. So it's this amazing opportunity where while you're still in college or finishing a master's, you can actually lock in a spot in an MBA program. And we'll get into a lot of detail about what that means for how you structure the first part of your career. And I can say I would have loved to have had this when I was thinking about business school, because I actually did know I wanted an MBA when I was in college, but I couldn't apply at that point. So this is a great opportunity. We're going to learn a lot more about it. And we're going to start with some roundtable questions that I wanted to ask our panelists. And so we'll start with Meg. And Meg, I just wondered if you could give us just kind of one thought on each of these. So, one reason that someone might want to consider a deferred enrollment or an early access MBA, and then one reason why maybe they shouldn't, like why you might want to hold off and follow the traditional path into an MBA program.
Yeah. And much like one of my colleagues, I've been at Haas for 17 and a half years now. I actually spent my first 17 years in alumni relations and just moved into admissions in October. So I've seen, the whole gamut of people who are starting MBAs or various degree programs. Why would you do an early access or accelerated access program? I think a lot of it is, if you know what you want to do, why not, is some of it. But also you're in this educational atmosphere. You're prepared for taking the GREs and getting ready for programming, resume writing. You're already in all of this. So if it's something that you know that you want to do, get an MBA, it's such a great next step. And then, I'm sorry, the second question was, why wouldn't you?
Yeah.
I think a lot of it, and I look back at my time as an undergrad, and I had no idea what I wanted to do. And my path has created itself. I think there's a lot of opportunities when you know what you want to do, when you have a passion and that drive, take that step. If you're really figuring things out and really in exploratory mode, I think there's options to see what other opportunities are next.
Got it. Excellent. Yeah. So those are two really good points. I want to turn to Gina. Anything that you want to add in terms of like another reason someone might consider deferred enrollment, and also why they might not want to consider it?
Yeah, certainly. I think, another reason to consider the deferred program is also kind of that peace of mind. You want to get an MBA. You're just not sure how yet it's really going to benefit you. And so this is just peace of mind. It's on your radar and you will be there in a couple years. But I think Meg said it best too, like with why you shouldn't. If there's just so much uncertainty, maybe it's best to follow that more traditional route, or maybe you decide your interests lie elsewhere and an MBA really isn't for you at that time.
Got it. Okay. Yeah. Excellent. Savannah, anything you want to add on these two questions?
I think everyone's covered what I've thought so far. I always tell people that it's hard to imagine how challenging it can be to work full time and do a standardized test. So never hurts to just think about that. I'd say like everyone else has reflected, a lack of self-reflection can be evident if you haven't truly thought about how an MBA can kind of play into the greater picture of your potential career goals. So, or if you haven't done the research to maybe assess like, okay, well, what can each school offer me? What can I get out of eventually enrolling there? That can also be a reason to hold off. But everyone else has already said it way better than I could have ever had. So I appreciated that.
Okay. And I do want to for everyone's benefit, I think we should say, in the case of Gretchen and Catherine, who I'm going to turn to next, you guys, it's hard for you because everyone's already gone before you, but is there anything, Gretchen, let's start with you. Is there anything you want to add to this long list that we're making of why people might want to do a deferred or why they might not?
Yeah, I think this is highlighting that there are so many benefits to it that you can just like keep on going. But
Yes.
I want to highlight that having that spot waiting for you really allows you to take risks in the start of your career that you maybe otherwise would never have. I know of folks who have gone through deferred enrollment programs who started jumped in and did an entrepreneurial venture that they never would have done if they hadn't had that MBA spot waiting for them. So it really gives you that optionality early on in your career because you've got that comfort and that assurance that we've been talking about. And I think the only other thing I'll add to maybe why not to apply, most people who are applying are in their final year of their undergrad or the final year of a master's program. And you might be extremely, extremely busy and it's just not the right time to apply. You're not going to be able to put together a strong application because you just don't have the time. The beauty of the deferred enrollment program is it's not the last possibility for you. You can wait and apply as a regular MBA applicant and wait for the best time for you in your life. So don't be afraid to do that if that's the best choice.
Okay. Yeah, well said. Catherine, anything you want to add? I know it's hard to go last on this.
Oh, no worries. I would just add that I think it's a little bit more financially friendly to apply through deferred enrollment programs. Most schools either reduce their application fee or waive it altogether. And so when students are applying on average 5 MBA programs, not having to pay that on average $250 application fee can be nice to think about. And then another reason why someone might hold off, the typical MBA student at these top programs has between 5 to 7 years of professional experience. With these deferred enrollment programs, we do ask you to matriculate between some schools are 2 to 4, some schools are 2 to 5. So if you are thinking that you would like more of a traditional MBA path of working for 5 to 7 years before matriculation, you might want to hold off.
Yeah, that's perfect. And I would say one other thing, I think this was kind of danced around, but the other thing is that I think one is better able to take a standardized test when you're still in academic mode. And I think Savannah was kind of hinting at that and maybe Gina as well, but it just, it really is a lot easier than when you're kind of already out in the workforce. So it's not just the time, it's like your brain is in the right space to do well on these types of tests that most of you all will require as part of the
I saw a
application.
study from GMAT that the average, the students who take the GMAT when they are still undergraduate students perform on average 30 to 40 points higher than students who wait until they're working full time.
I am not surprised. Yeah. So so that's important. All right. So let's move into the next section. Great answers on this. I think we've got shed a lot of light on things. I did want to mention, just for everyone's benefit, that in most cases, every school has a slightly different application, but most cases, schools are going to require that you fill out an application form. There might be an application fee, although many of you waive it for deferred enrollment. You'll have to provide transcripts from college, and I think the rule there is you'll provide transcripts up to where you are, and you'll have to probably update them later to ensure these institutions that you did in fact graduate, and that sort of thing. You then obviously standardize tests, a resume, as we'll get into in a little bit here. Each school asks kind of essay questions or short answers. There are letters of recommendation, an interview, usually by invitation, and in some cases a language test for those of you who are international candidates who maybe don't speak English as a first language. So those are just the basics, just keeping that in mind. Here are the deadlines as well that we have. I think in some cases there may have been, I can't remember if any of you have an earlier deadline, but these are the next ones. So we kind of focus there. And I think I just want to call attention to the fact that Darden has a later deadline too, later in the summer, for those who can't apply in April. But those are the deadlines, so there's lots of time. So just keep that in mind as well. The next thing we're going to do is I wanted to give kind of each program here the floor to talk a little bit about their institution. And I had kind of 3 questions in mind that I'd love to get kind of just quick answers on. And so Meg, we're going to start with you and talk a little bit about Haas. And the questions are, the first thing is just, I'd love to hear something that we don't know about Haas, and it not just about deferred enrollment, but just something you think that is kind of interesting about your institution that we may not know. The second question is something about your deferred enrollment program that you think we should know. And then the third is something about the admissions process for deferred that you'd want us to be aware of. So those are the 3 things. I'll remind you as we go in case you need help. But yeah, so walk us through that.
Yeah, so I was thinking a lot about this, or what are the cool things about Haas, or the awesome things about Haas? And something that really stands out to me is, so we are the 2nd oldest business school in the US. And we're the oldest public business school in the US. We started in 1898, and we are here because of a donation from a woman in 1898. Cora Jane Flood made a donation to UC Berkeley so that we could start the College of Commerce, which has turned into the Haas School of Business. So I find a lot of pride in that fact that we're the 2nd oldest business school, but that we were started by a woman. We're here because of those who have come before us. And so that's a really exciting fact about Haas.
Oh, wow. Yeah, you totally, that's something I had no idea about. So that's excellent. All right, what about
my other funny thing, just because Wharton isn't here, Wharton is the oldest business school in the US, but they didn't have a dean. We had a dean before they did. So I like to just say, we might be the
all right, well, they're with us. They're with us next week. So I'll convey this message.
Yeah.
All right. So yeah, what about an aspect of your deferred enrollment program that you want to highlight?
Of deferred enrollment. So one of the wonderful benefits that you get as part of deferred enrollment is when you're accepted, you'll have access to our career management group in group settings, not one-on-one career services, but you'll have access to our career management as a accelerated access group, but also you'll have access to our alumni network from the beginning, especially our worldwide alumni chapters. So you're folded into this network from the beginning. You don't have to wait to be a student. You have a lot of access to build your network, to really focus on what are your career paths, and have people around you to help you with those decisions and those next steps.
Got it. And then one last thing, just anything in the admissions process you want us to be aware of that's, specific to deferred.
Well, and even specific to admissions for maybe perhaps any school, what's really been standing out to me is why an MBA, but why Haas? Why the program that you're looking at? I think it's really important to be self-reflective of, why is this a program that's going to help me in my career path? It's going to help me in my career passions. I think it's really important to look at the school that you are applying to and why specifically that is the right place for you, and you are the right place for the school.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
So, All right, so now we're going to move on and talk to Gina about these same questions. So Gina, yeah, tell us something that we don't know about Carnegie Mellon and Tepper, and then something about deferred and an admissions sort of tidbit as well.
Yeah, certainly. So in terms of applicants and this particular program, our program is only open to those graduating from a US institution. So that's, I think, a little different compared to some other schools that you have to graduate from a US institution. But what makes our program a little bit different is the sense that you are just reserving your seat at Tepper through discussions, and when it's time to matriculate, you have the full-time program, part-time program, accelerated, if you qualify for that as well. These are things that we can discuss when the time comes, but it's kind of nice because life changes, and maybe in the end a part-time program's best for you at that particular moment. So again, that's just something that's a little open-ended for us. In terms of highlighting something about the process, I mean, I think you are savvy students because you're here, you're learning more about deferred MBAs, it's all on your mind, but why our school? Like Megan mentioned, we want to know why this particular program is best for you, why Tepper. Tell me. That's how we kind of figure out that fit and how we can best help you in your future plans.
Got it. Excellent. So now let's turn to Savannah and talk a little bit about Columbia Business School and these same questions.
Of course. So one thing that I personally found surprising about CBS whenever I started in June, not too long ago, was that more than 50% of students will do in-semester internships, not because it's a requirement, but because you have access to a city like New York while you're a student. For us, the deferred enrollment program is looked more as like an alternate pathway into the full-time MBA program, right? So like many other programs, we require 2 to 5 years, and individuals can matriculate either in the August entry or the January entry term. So there is that optionality there. One thing that my colleague Susanna, who also works on the deferred enrollment program, and I really hope that people get out of applying to the deferred enrollment program is that we genuinely want you to be who you are, rather than thinking about what an admissions officer may want. We have curated these questions to really get to know you, and I think it becomes a little obvious when it's not what you actually are hoping to show about yourself. So just being genuine, that's something that I think really stands out to us.
Okay, yeah, that's helpful as well. Gretchen, how about with HBS and the 2+2 program? What do you want to share about something we don't know? It's something we don't know about Harvard, and then, an aspect of deferred enrollment and something about the admissions process.
Yeah, so I think to start off, to highlight something about Harvard Business School that I think sometimes I'm hoping it's like debunking myths around HBS, is that our community really is a very like all in, everybody in community in our MBA program. Our students are we look for diversity in all of its forms for our classroom. And part of that, the beauty of that is that when you're going into a class and maybe you don't feel as strong in a certain subject, there's probably someone in the room who maybe is coming from that industry or that background and can really help you. And so our students are very much just as invested in each other's learning as they are their own. And so I think that really causes a camaraderie and a lack of competitiveness that sometimes people think is attached to MBA programs in general, but also just Harvard in general. And so I think it's a really nice thing to highlight. One thing I would say about the 2+2 program in particular, I think you really do in your deferral period get some early access to some wonderful HBS events and programs. And you also get connected to your fellow deferred students. And I think that it's really wonderful in those deferral years to really get that network early. And we have many 2+2ers who find each other in the cities that they're all working in, and can really become a part of a community even before they've matriculated into our MBA program. So that's a really wonderful thing as well. And I agree with what a lot of my colleagues have already been saying about thinking about the program that you're applying to and really focusing your application in that way. I think logistically, one thing I always like to highlight as well is to think about your recommenders early and ask them early. It's the one piece of the application that really is out of your hands about whether it gets submitted on time. So giving those recommenders enough time to get something strong in, and also to really maybe sit down with them, talk with them about why you're applying to an MBA program early, and what you're hoping to achieve in your career, and why this is already a decision you've made, I think can really help your recommenders put together the strongest letter that you want submitted.
Yeah, that's excellent advice. It's almost like your first management test. You know, can you manage your recommenders and make sure that they accomplish their goal of getting the letters in on time? Yeah, well said. Catherine, how about you? Do you want to walk us through something interesting about Darden, and then the other two questions as well?
Sure. So one thing people may already know is that Darden is one of 2 MBA programs in the United States that teaches its core curriculum through the case method. So that's also Harvard. So be sure to check out different styles of teaching to try to figure out what resonates with you. And one thing that I think is a little bit different, maybe, is that Darden gives every student in our full-time MBA program a scholarship to do a international worldwide course. So that's kind of neat. Something that makes the deferred enrollment program different from the traditional MBA, I do want to point out that for all of our programs, if you apply through the deferred pathway, which is just one pathway to the MBA program, when you matriculate to whichever MBA program, you are considered a regular MBA student. There is no difference between the experience you would have as an MBA student as a deferred admit or a regular admit. But one aspect that you will get, as what Gretchen already referred to, is just that connection with other people who are in the deferred admit pool. I've seen deferred admits hire other deferred admits, and I've also heard from students in the deferral period how much they've appreciated having that community of other deferred admits who already know they're going to business school, who've already been admitted, to kind of bounce ideas off of and think about things like when is the right time to matriculate, et cetera. Lastly, a specific aspect of our admissions process that I hope everyone is aware of is we have test flexibility. So we accept the GMAT, the GRE, as well as the SAT and ACT. So there are some pros and cons to applying with your SAT or ACT score, but that is an option.
Okay, good to know. Now you've got me thinking about like the class and the MBA program having like sweatshirts that say, deferred, or, I was waitlisted, or, like these different groups, which obviously doesn't happen. Everyone is the same in the program once you're there, but that's a really good point that I'm glad you mentioned. Now we're going to move into the next part of our session today. And I just want to use actually this time to mention before we get into this, that each of our panelists is going to bounce off into a breakout room at the end of our main session. So if you have questions for any of our panelists about their program and want to keep talking, you can bounce into these breakouts that we'll get to in a little bit here. So just FYI. But for this next session, we're going to dive into the essays. I know that, as you're applying to these programs and thinking about your application, it's top of mind. Most of them ask, short essay questions and things. So we're going to get a little bit of insight there to help you as you navigate this part of the process. And so what I wanted to do is just give Meg an opportunity to talk a little bit about Haas. And, you have these 2 essays here. Is there anything you want to say just briefly about these questions?
So looking at the essays that we ask, the first one, what makes you feel most alive? We want to know who you are. And I think we've all said this in various ways. The authenticity is real. We want to make sure that you're following what you're interested in doing or showing us what really excites you. For instance, what makes me feel most alive is when I'm swimming, when I'm in water. And why is that? Well, I can meditate. I come back to my home, my love. How do you show these pieces of yourself to us in a 300-word essay? So it's really important that you're authentic, that you really think about what is it that makes you feel most alive? How can you tell that story? So that's the first one. The second one is very much about how is an MBA going to help you in your career path? And I think looking at our accelerated access students, you've been really thoughtful about this. Why are you interested in setting yourself up for this next level of education? So how is an MBA going to continue along your path of taking that time after graduating grad to again learn about yourself more, to grow in your career, to get promotions, and then move into this MBA aspect and back to education, back to being a student always. How do you take that, and where is that going to launch you into those next phases? So it's really important to be authentic, to again talk about why is the program that you're applying for important to you? Why is an MBA going to get you where you need to be next? But just take time to be creative, to be thoughtful, and to get into who you are and how you want to show that to us and tell us that story.
Okay. And one follow-up I have for you, I'm just gonna, so with respect to SA2, and I think you've kind of alluded to this, but one of the things I wanted to know is, should candidates be talking about what they're going to get out of specific, courses and things at Haas? So obviously they might have an idea of what kind of a leader they want to be and stuff, but is it fair game to talk a little bit about, what they think the MBA program is going to do for them in terms of helping them to achieve these kind of leadership goals?
Yeah, that's a really great question. I think it is important to look at what are the courses that are being offered, what are the extra experiences, whether experiential learning or international travel or whatever it is. Who are the professors? What are the centers that are on campus that are focused on the things that you want to be doing? Highlight that in your essay. I want to see that you've done that research to look at, here is why Haas is in particular the right school for me, because you offer these things. And it really shows us, again, the why Haas aspect. It shows us that you've done that due diligence. But yeah, I think it's an amazing thing to add to your why that school and what it can specifically provide and what you can provide back.
Okay. All right. Excellent advice. Let's move on and talk with Gina again, a little bit about Carnegie Mellon Tepper. So, we've got your essay topics on screen, as we just did for Haas as well. So, just tell us a little bit about whichever one of these you want to talk about, and then I might have a follow-up question for you too.
Certainly. I'll start with the short answers. So, just tell us simply what you're doing after your undergrad. Sometimes students have job offers that they've accepted. Sometimes you're still waiting and interviewing, and either is fine. Just, tell us. We want to at least know what your goals are, what you're hoping to do. So, those are pretty open-ended questions that we it just helps us learn a little bit more about you. And then for our main essay, this is where, again, people talk about fit. Am I a good fit for the program? Well, this is where it's your chance to tell us why you're a good fit for the program. Maybe it's because we are a little bit flexible when it comes time to enter for your MBA, as I mentioned, full-time or part-time. Maybe you're hoping to transition to a particular career. You can review job stats and see where students go, where they end up. We all have strengths of our programs. And so tell us why you're interested in our particular program at Tepper and what you're looking forward to.
Got it. So one of the things I was thinking about with this is, we talked at the outset about how a benefit of doing deferred is that sort of peace of mind. And yet when I sit down to write an essay here, I feel like it might be too over the top or something to just say, well, I just want to know that I have my spot. So I presume they need to dig a little deeper than that, right? That could be a reason, I guess, but would you recommend going beyond just that sort of peace of mind aspect?
I would. I mean, I think the peace of mind is a valid reason,
Sure.
this is why we have those programs, but, tell me a little bit more about why Tepper's program, deferring for 2 to 4 years. Give us a little bit more information other than just that, it's that peace of mind.
Got it. Okay. Very helpful. All right. So let's move on and talk with Savannah about Columbia's essays. So Savannah, same thing. Take me through one of these, whichever one, that or any quick highlights you want to provide. And then I think I have some follow-ups here for you too.
Yeah, of course. So like the presentation highlights, we have our short answer question, which is 50 characters max. A lot of people come to me and they're like, so should I put my post undergrad goal or my post MBA goal? And this is the first time that we have asked this question for the DEP applications, the Deferred Enrollment Program applications. The full-time MBA, it asks this question as well. But ultimately you can take this in whatever direction you'd like. I'm not entirely sure. I know one of the questions that might come up is like, well, what does the difference look like for undergrads versus maybe individuals who are further along in their career? And we don't know quite yet, but take this in whatever direction you would like, whether that's post undergrad or post MBA. For essay number 1, that allows you to go deeper into what your goals look like for your career and how an MBA at Columbia can fit into the greater picture of those goals. And essay 2 is our new question this year that we're so excited to be hearing about. A lot of people will come to me and say, well, I'm involved in a lot of stuff, so how do I choose which one? Students at CBS are so involved on campus. We want to hear about what you're involved in as an undergrad. This doesn't have to be a professional involvement. It can be something else that you're actively involved in undergrad, whether, hey, maybe you're part of a dance team, or hey, you're, actively doing volunteer work off campus. We want to hear about that. And it doesn't have to be along the lines of just professional goals when you're writing essay 2. With something personal, there is no wrong answer. So if you're involved in a lot, but there's one thing that you just know in your gut feels right to talk about, I would maybe do that one for essay 2. So that's what I can offer for the short answer essay 1 and essay 2. But Graham, do you have any follow-up questions for me?
Yeah, so the thing that I'm thinking about is, as you know, I mean, the folks who've joined us today are all very talented and have many activities that they're involved in undergrad. And so the thing you were alluding to before is this idea that how do I pick one element? Maybe I'm, a captain of a team, a sports team, but I'm also very active in a, social organization or a cultural, association on campus. And so I just was wondering, or really what I'd love to do, like, I feel like there's a myth out there where candidates who are looking at business school are going to say, I need to pick the activity that's most kind of businessy. And you were just mentioning that that's not the case, but I just want you to underline that. Like, so it's totally fine to talk about something here that is not related to necessarily to their career or to business in general.
Exactly, totally. And in addition to that, if it's not even something as well that's like affiliated with your university. So maybe there's a volunteer organization off campus. Maybe your campus is in a city and you actively go to a place off campus to do that. That's what I can highlight there.
Okay. That's really helpful. I just want to make sure, because I again, recognizing that people have lots of activities they can draw from. There's probably that debate that they're all having. Excellent. All right. So Gretchen, let's turn to you. And I believe we may have 2 slides because you guys have a couple of different essays. And so the first slide shows the first essay, which is a pick 2 of 3. And then there's another slide we have. So just tell us where you want to go as you talk through, or, we'll kind of talk through these with you. But yeah, I'd love to hear your thoughts.
So these are actually new essays to the 2+2 application. So if you ever looked at an application previously, you probably saw a really broad essay question that tended to scare people a little bit. And these we've now switched it up a little bit so that we can hear about a few different aspects of your journey and why you're applying to the MBA at HBS. And so the first part of that is the personal essays, where we want you to really choose between 2 out of the 3 questions that are listed here. Really, they're talking about your leadership opportunities, your intellectual experiences, or the communities that you've been engaged with. And you really have the opportunity to choose whichever 2 you think are the best choices to let us get to know you a little bit more. And that's really what these are intended to do. And I think the big thing about all 3 of these questions is to remember that we are not looking for a specific answer, a specific type of leader, a specific community, a specific intellectual experience. We just want to hear what's true to what your experiences are. And I know we've talked about authenticity a lot, and that is very much true for these essays as well. And then the second part of the essay section, which I'll move to, is the career essay. And this would be a 3rd essay of 300 words. And we really want to hear about your career plans and what your professional hopes and plans are, both in the deferral period and then after, beyond the MBA, and what skills and or professional experiences you're hoping to gain in that deferral period. And that is really so that we can also hear, how are you hoping to prepare yourself for this MBA that you're going to be joining, hopefully within 2 to 4 years? Because we really want our deferral students to be coming into the MBA to really be able to contribute to the case classroom. And how you do that is by bringing the experiences that you've had. So we just want to hear about what your plans are for how to hone your skills and really prepare yourself to come into an academically rigorous program.
Got it. All right. So I have, if you don't mind, I have 2 very quick kind of follow-ups. The first one relates to the first little group of essay questions.
Mhm.
And it's really simple. It's just, when someone's thinking about examples they want to share, is there like a recency bias that they should employ, in terms of like, oh, I should pick stuff that's sort of from my college era, as opposed to digging back into high school or before? Or is it kind of whatever strikes them in terms of what they might want to share?
I think we really do like to hear what you've been doing most recently, and
Mhm.
what's been impactful most recently for you. But if there is a very impactful experience that you had maybe at the beginning of college or in high school that kind of led you to communities that you worked with in college, or internships that you chose because of that initial experience, we'd love to hear about that as well. And I think that's an okay thing to kind of balance it if that's necessary.
Okay. And then one clarification on the second essay is really just, it really is what they want to do in the deferral period. So they shouldn't be talking about skills they're hoping to gain in the program for use in their career after. It's really more about, what are they going to be doing in the intervening years after college before they start?
Yeah, we really do want to hear about the deferral program, but I do think that it is great if you have done some research on what our MBA program is like, and
Sure.
why the HBS MBA is really going to help you probably hopefully strengthen those skills that you are really beginning to develop in that deferral period. We'd love to hear how those kind of connect for you, because that's
Okay.
another chance for you to really to highlight why our MBA program in particular.
Okay. Yeah, makes sense. All right. So last but not least, let's turn to Catherine at Virginia Darden. So yeah, Catherine, take us through your questions, and I think I have a couple of follow-ups. So let's hear what you got.
Sure. So the first question is what I call our personality question. What would you want your classmates to know about you that is on your resume? You spend a lot of time with your classmates. You meet with them every evening with your learning team, preparing for class the next day. And then you're in a class for, on average, 4.5 hours a day, plus clubs, et cetera. And so given that you're going to be spending a lot of time, what is important for people who spend that much time with you to know about you? Is another way to put that first question. The second question is around inclusive impact. I'm looking for you to provide an example of a time that you went out of your way to reach out to someone to include them in a group. And then lastly, wanting to know a little bit about what you're hoping to do after you graduate from your undergraduate school and how an MBA might fit into your future plans.
Yeah. And so I love this, the not on your resume question, this first question. And I know you guys have asked this. I think you've asked it for many years, or it seems to me that it's been there for many years. So I guess, I mean, any advice on how does one sift through, like, that just feels like there's so many things that people bring to the table, quirks or hobbies or interests. I mean, I don't know if there's any advice you could give here. Like, should someone make a list of like things and then kind of, I don't know, try to put it in order or ask friends, or like, what would you do if you were trying to figure this out?
It's really broad. And we see people who are kind of silly, and then see people who are very academic and serious in their response. And it really is kind of whatever's true to you. If it were me, I think I would kind of ask my friends what they think of me, what they think my personality is like, and take that angle. But again, everybody can kind of take their own twist on it.
Got it. And then the last question I have for you is about the goals essay, which is your short answer number 3. And really, what's interesting to me is that you say at this time, and obviously, I think for a college student applying to business school, it's sort of this far off thing. And so I think it's a great way to phrase this, because things change and people's goals maybe shift. But I'm wondering, like, how much leeway does a candidate have? Because when we think about a traditional path into business school, someone's been working for several years, they're applying and they're asked what their goals are. And it's usually a little bit easier to kind of say, well, I know I want to do this after business school, and so I'm coming to get these skills. But here you're saying at this time, because there's this openness. And so I'm just wondering, yeah, how free are candidates in terms of, could they say like, well, I'd like to do this or that, or does it need to be kind of one thing?
Yeah, it is open. And one of the things that I love about the MBA degree is that it's a very open degree, that there are MBAs in all different industries and all different fields. So it's really not too hard to make a case for an interest in an MBA, since you can use it to do anything. But one thing that you'll quickly figure out about MBA programs is that there is a strong emphasis on leadership. And so I think if anyone sees themselves as a natural leader, someone who likes to have oversight, who likes to direct, who likes to set the strategy, if you're that type of a person, an MBA is probably going to be in your future. And so kind of identifying those traits that you have that are consistent with a leader, and identifying them, speaking to how you've seen those, and then just projecting how you think you might use those gifts in the future.
Got it. Okay. Yeah, that's really helpful. And again, I appreciate everyone kind of humoring me with these. I'm peppering you guys with questions about your essay topics, but I'm trying to put myself in the shoes of the candidates here and think about what questions they would have. Obviously, as I said earlier, if you still have questions, you can bounce into the breakouts that each of our panelists are going to shortly bounce into. We just have one more little section that's a bit of fun that we're going to dive through, sort of try to zip through here so that everyone can get into their breakouts. I'm actually going to stay with Catherine so that we go backwards through the alphabet. I just feel like try to be fair here about the whole alphabetical stuff. So we'll go backwards this time. So Catherine, I wanted you to answer this question, which is just, what's one thing that you think a deferred enrollment candidate could do to stand out in your admissions process?
Well, Graham, I've actually appreciated being last, because with the last thing that starts with an A, I'm usually first. So
there you go.
It's welcome. But one thing I would encourage anyone applying to these MBA programs is, rather than focus on what you think these programs are looking for, flip it around and focus on who you are and what you have to offer an MBA program. I think so often we spend time trying to portray ourselves as this superficial ideal candidate that doesn't really exist. What all of these schools are looking for is trying to understand a little bit more about who you are, what makes you tick, how you became the person that you are today. So if you can speak to how your past experiences have shaped you and who you are finding yourself to be, you really will differentiate yourself from others.
Fair enough. Yeah. And we have another lightning round question. I'm just going to do them both with each of you as we go through. So the other lightning round question is, how would you describe your student community in 3 words?
Okay, I'm going to cheat a little because I'm going to put a hyphenated word in there, but I would say hardworking, supportive, and authentic.
Okay, excellent. We allow hyphens just so that everyone else on the panel knows. Hyphens are okay. All right, excellent. So now let's turn to Gretchen. Same 2 questions, something you think that they can do to stand out, and then the 3 words that describe your community.
Yeah, I mean, I think Catherine summed up that how they can stand out really, really well. But I will say, I think if you're at this point where you're considering a deferred enrollment and you really are diving into that application, I think the confidence that you should feel in yourself will really come through if you allow it to. So be confident in your story, be confident in like your unique journey and why you're applying, and recognize that, as Catherine was saying, we're not looking for a certain cookie cutter applicant. And so if that's the case, then we want to hear your unique story and journey. And so really, really own that and own yourself. And I think you'll do well. And for the second question, I would say for HBS, the 3 words: supportive, collaborative, and vibrant.
Okay, excellent. I know this gets harder as we go because everyone runs out of adjectives, but I'm just noting that, particularly for Meg, who's at the end. All right, so Savannah, Columbia Business School, something folks can do to stand out, and then the 3 words for your community.
Yeah, well, honestly, Catherine and Gretchen have said everything that I could have possibly that I wanted to contribute to answer this question. It's just truly like know who you are and be confident in who you are and present that version of yourself. My favorite advice that I've ever heard, and I think Catherine hinted at it earlier, was if you were to ask someone to look at their essay, if they at your essays, and if they know you really well, like, have you clearly answered that question, and is it an honest reflection of who you are as an individual? I think that that's so helpful. And as for 3 words that I think describe CBS, I was going to mention innovative, collaborative, and just ever evolving, dynamic. Yeah, I went over the word limit, but it's such a great place to be, so can't stop there.
Okay, excellent. Let's turn to Gina. How about you for these questions?
Yeah, I mean, again, echo what's been said, down to even I say cookie cutter candidate, like everyone's unique. So I'll take it from this perspective that, again, you're savvy students, you're here today to learn more about our schools, but go the extra steps. Try and talk to current students, maybe some alums, but there's a way to find out more about our school, what the environment is like. I mean, this is really a college search all over again. So take the opportunity, get to know us, and then in the end, that enhances your essays to make you stand out more because you're sharing your own experiences as to why our programs are best for you. And then the final 3 words, I'll go with engaged, supportive, and outgoing.
Okay, excellent. All right, Meg, we turn to you. I know it's hard to go last, but anything you think that folks can do to stand out in Haas's deferred enrollment admissions process?
Yeah, and same thing, echoing the rest of this wonderful group, the being your true self, being authentic, telling us why the school is right for you, why you're right for the school. What does Haas bring to the table that will allow you to progress in your desired career path? I think those are really, really important points to get across. And then my 3 words. I like going last because I'm going to question the status quo, which I'll get to in a second. So Haas has defining leadership principles so defining leadership principles might be my 3 words, but really define our community. And they are question the status quo, beyond yourself, student always, and confidence without attitude. And I think our community, our students, our staff, our alumni, our faculty, we all embody those defining principles. That's why we're here. So that is what I would highlight and send with love.
All right, there you go.
Yeah.
So no, that was excellent. So what we're going to do now is I want all of our attendees to hang out here with me. I'm going to let our panelists jump into their breakouts, but let's just give them a moment to get set up. So just hang out with me for a second. I do want to sincerely thank, Meg, Gina, Savannah, Gretchen, and Catherine for all your time. And I know you're probably going to get some great questions now from our attendees in the individual breakouts, and we'll send you off to do that, but really appreciate you guys making time for this. So we'll let you guys get set up over there. I think you can just, there should be like a way to bounce into your breakouts. Yeah, I see. Folks are heading that way. So in any event, for those of you who are attendees, just hang out with me for a second. I wanted to offer you just a moment of just a couple of tips as you think about deferred enrollment. And I think, so I see Meg's still here. I guess Mike's going to get you bounced into the room. There we go. So just before you guys go and ask them questions, 5 tips for applying deferred. Number 1, aim for high scores. If you're taking a test, for example, or if you're finishing out your semester and trying to get good grades. Leverage on-campus leadership. You don't have full-time work experience per se, like 4 years of it, the way many MBA applicants would typically have. So leverage that on-campus leadership that you can get. Third, look beyond your classroom for recommendations. So if you're doing something with an outside activity, a volunteer organization, you can get a recommender from that too. It doesn't just have to be professors. It could also be from a job you had over the summer. Engage the community. I think we heard the schools say this over and over again, like talk to the schools that you're going to be applying to, talk to students, get in contact with clubs, anything that you're interested in the program, that'll show through in the essays you then write. And then finally, demonstrate maturity. I know you guys are all mature, you're in college, you're about to graduate, but when it comes to your career plan and this idea that you have for what you're going to see yourself doing in the future, the better kind of a plan that you have, or the more well laid out it is, the better off you're going to be in the admissions process. So as it now stands, you should be able to bounce over to these breakout rooms. I think on my screen, it's at the bottom right. There's like a little more button, and you can go to breakout rooms and chat individually with the schools. I want to thank everyone for joining us and remind you that next week we're doing an event just like this with Wharton, University of Chicago, and Yale. So come on back next week, same time, same place, if you're interested. And yeah, thanks so much everyone for taking part in this. It's been a real pleasure to have you all here, and best of luck with the rest of your semester. And yeah, go ask questions of the schools now. They're all waiting to chat with you.